Hi Geoff.
Hi, welcome to episode 31.
We're finally back.
Yeah.
After a wee bit of a break.
Yeah, it got a bit crazy there, the whole Christmas break, because I wasn't very well, and then you weren't very well, and then there was work from both sides, and Christmas fests and all that nonsense.
Yep.
Yeah, first one of the new year. Is it too late now to say Happy New Year?
No, absolutely not. Happy New Year, folks.
I was wondering about that.
We would toast you with a beer, but I'm off it.
How long are you off it for, Colin? Is that you?
I've had a couple of beers, I'll say, but and just in this last week. But I'm staying off it, and it's not a dry January thing. It's just been an illness thing. Yeah. I had a bacterial infection in my gut for the past 3.5 weeks, which has been very unpleasant.
If you'd got that bacterial infection out though and bottled it, you probably could have made quite a nice beer.
It didn't look nice. It was quite watery.
That's what beer is, it's not an infection.
Yeah, just put some yeast in it.
Yeah, that was a yeast joke. A bit of hops. So we're, I think we've talked a wee bit on it, if you're on our Facebook page, which loads of folk are now, all of a sudden, because there's a new community feature. But we are kind of playing around with the format quite significantly. I don't think we're going to be a duo, because it's quite...
We've got a few other people interested in doing comic and beer reviews with us, so
we're playing around
watch this space.
Yes, absolutely. With that in mind, after this podcast, not on the video, if you want to go, you'll have to go and hunt it down if you want to see it, but it is available on different formats. But if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, I have attached like the first beer kind of chat of 2019 with our friend James, who's going to join our group because he's a total beer aficionado. But he's from Englandshire, so his it was quite interesting. You hear about it, but he, his understanding of craft beer has been founded in sort of the microclimate that is the Manchester craft beer scene, whereas obviously, and on reflection, looking back, obviously we kind of predominantly review Scottish beers, just because of where we are geographically, and that's kind of obviously quite how it's kind of how it works,
because these small breweries don't have the reach to be able to get out to your big supermarkets and to be able to deliver out to all these independent shops.
Absolutely.
So you're kind of stuck with what's local or what's a little bit bigger in terms of distribution,
which was quite interesting. And you'll hear on the podcast James kind of talks about that, because there was a beer that he picked up from a local supermarket, which I usually associate with something I wouldn't have normally picked it, because it didn't excite me, but it was something he recognised from a couple of years back as being quite niche and small scale in Manchester, but it's now in shelves in Scotland, which was pretty cool. It led to quite an interesting discussion about beer in general. And also we did have quite a few beers over the course of our discussions, and ended up going through quite a meandering conversation about comics, movies and TV shows that have like a comic vibe to them that are coming out in 2020. So stay tuned if you want to listen to that.
Actually, a couple of my books that I'm reviewing are kind of based on movies. Yeah,
absolutely, and movies that are coming out this year, I think. So that would be quite good. So, what with that in mind, what have you got to review with us?
Well, I'm going to do a James Bond book, Hammerhead. So not a movie, but a graphic novel that came out not so long ago. I remember it coming out as single issues, and I'm going to review Kingsman, Red Diamond. So the Kingsman, Secret Service movies.
Is that related to the series?
Yeah. So it's
is that coming out? There's a new Kingsman.
There is a new Kingsman movie, which is a sort of prequel, I think. Coming out. Red Diamond is just a graphic novel. The graphic novels, the comics aren't really a lot like the movies. I'll mention that in my review.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to do those two.
I've got like a total random flavour. I have Avengers are killing it just now. So the main Avengers line of comics has been phenomenal. So I just grabbed part two of their current story arc, which is called Starbrand Reborn, which is pretty cool. But one of the coolest comic covers I've seen in a little while. So I thought that was amazing. And we earlier on last year, towards the end of last year, sorry, we asked comic creators if they wanted to have some of their stuff read and reviewed by us, and we were kind of inundated. We got quite a few, maybe a good half dozen anyway. And I just thought the first one I read was by M.G. Rivas, who has a series. He's got a number of series out actually, and he sent us quite a few of them. But he sent me out this series called Murderers of the World, and I'm going to review not issue 1 of that and issue 2 a wee bit, because it's kind of like one big story cut into 2, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
So Bond, James Bond.
Okay, and I'll dive into James Bond. So here's the cover of James Bond Hammerhead. Written, it's published with Dynamite. Dynamite do a lot of James Bond books.
Like Dynamite.
The writer's Andy Diggle, who's a well-known writer. Artist is Luca Casalanguida.
That's a great name.
Yeah, it's a hard one to get your tongue around. Colours by Chris Blythe and letters by Simon Boland. So, what's this story about? Well, it is a very much, if you've seen any James Bond movies, the books kind of follow the same kind of pattern.
Yeah.
There's often a kind of little action-packed sequence at the start before it kind of gets into the actual mission itself. Bond will go and visit M, flirt with Moneypenny, go off on some mission, which turns out to not be what it was originally thought. And the books are kind of just follow that same sort of pattern. There is a new Bond movie, isn't there, coming out soon?
I saw the trailer for it recently. It's called
something about dying.
It's dying. It's No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. Yeah.
I actually quite liked the trailer. I saw the chance to see the Star Wars movie over the holidays, and I liked. There was a really quite a quirky. I'm trying to remember what the joke was, but it was ultimately he's aged. It's playing around with the fact that we're coming towards the end of 007's career as or James Bond's career as 007, and his name is I think the clip is that he gets asked his name, like what's the name, sir, and he goes Bond, and then he pauses as if the lady should expect to know who he is, and she doesn't, and he has to then go, James Bond, and I was like, oh, that's cool, that's good. I like the idea that
there's a bit of talk as well in the news that they're obviously looking for a new.
I thought they found one. I thought they found an actress.
I don't know. There's talk about a female Bond, and there's been talk about
because folk went kind of crazy. Were like, how can we have a female Bond? And they're like, because it's the code name and all that nonsense.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, let's get back to the comic book. So, in this story, it's kind of modern day, and Britain's nuclear arsenal is being revamped, but like at the moment, Trident, a lot of money is getting spent on revamping Trident. So this sort of mysterious character who's known as Kraken has been targeting Britain's nuclear arsenal, trying to steal things and target the bases and things. As far as we can see from the story, there's not a lot of detail about what is actually happening there. Meanwhile, a company called Hunt Engineering has been given the contract to renew Trident or replace it. And this codename Hammerhead, which is part of the title of the book, is the name of this new weapon system that they've built, a railgun, which is basically one of these sort of huge guns that fire things using sort of magnetism. An electric kind of gun that can fire missiles, and this Hammerhead can launch things into orbit, it can fire missiles over a huge distance. Anyway, because Hunt Engineering's kind of got this job, they might be a target for Kraken. So there's this big arms fair in I think it's Saudi Arabia, I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, an arms fair, and James Bond's mission is to go and look after the boss of Hunt Engineering, keep an eye on them while they're at this arms fair in case they're going to be attacked by this mysterious Kraken figure. And of course, the boss of the business turns out to be a beautiful woman.
Oh, of course.
You know.
Oh, I thought like it kind of goes 2 or 3 ways. So spoilers for anyone that hasn't seen James Bond. I get from your description, without even reading it, I was guessing that she was either going to be stunning, or the leader of Kraken was going to be the leader of Hunt Engineering, because that always happens in a Bond film.
Yeah, these things are pretty much kind of staple fare, aren't they? Yeah.
He goes to protect somebody.
And in fact, that's what I wrote in my little review. It is standard James Bond fare. Yeah. It's a competent story. The artwork's good. Let's have a quick look at the artwork here. There's a wee bit of an artwork in there.
That's nice.
It's Dubai. That's where the arms fair is there, because that's the picture as he arrives and he's looking down on the arms fair.
That's really quite classic as well.
It is kind of classic look. The look of Bond in a lot of the books, they don't try and make him look like
any of the actors.
No, not really.
I think that's quite
good. But there does tend to be a kind of look that most of the artists go for, even though it's different artists.
Do we know what that's kind of based on?
No, I'm not really sure. It just doesn't look like any of the actors.
That's interesting.
Really, but chiselled jaw, dark hair.
What kind of time do they set it in? I read
this is modern day.
Yeah.
This one.
I was always wondering that.
Bond's been around since when?
60s, yeah. Well, 50s, even late 50s.
Maybe,
I don't know
maybe
the books. Right,
in fact, some of the books I think are post-war, aren't they? Yeah. They're early.
I read an official. I can't remember how it was billed. I read a book called by Alexander or Alistair Fox. I'll need to work at it, but he's like kind of the Fleming estates established and recognised.
Yeah, that's right. The other writers have gone.
They recognise his writings as sort of canon within the books.
Yeah. I've read a couple of the books, the Fleming books, and they're really different from the movies. I mean, really massively different.
Yeah. Even reading the books, like what I thought was quite interesting from what I read was they deliberately kind of, I felt like they were shying away from giving you sort of a context in regards to time. So like they were using relatively like get the jet, he drove the combat jeep, it was kind of that kind of language to kind of mask when in the film where the book was supposed to be set, because obviously in the films they kind of reflect whatever's modern at that time, which is quite interesting in itself. I always thought that was quite cool where obviously like he's supposed to be the same guy and the same character, but he hasn't aged in 30 years and technology's moved, but he has,
Yeah, absolutely. And that has kind of been nodded to in some of the previous movies when he's been called a relic, a dinosaur sort of thing.
Have you heard the online? Sorry, I like James Bond stuff. Have you heard the online fan theory about James Bond and that James Bond, as well as the 007 code name, the name James Bond is also a code name, and that is there's like an online theory that suggests that's why he's played by different actors. But the films are still canon to each other, like it's still particularly the early ones, maybe not so much.
I suppose if you need to explain it, then that's a reasonable explanation.
I quite like that, and actually he's different guys being James Bond.
It's not real, so so what?
I like it.
It's just like Avengers and things, and Spider-Man's been around since the 60s as well, and Batman's been around since 1939.
Yeah, they turned Jameson from a editor to a tech mogul or whatever that
so whatever, it's just stories, it makes no odds to me.
Anyway, I like the James Bond stuff. What did you give
back
this?
To the book? I'm giving some ratings now. It's a competent, straightforward James Bond story. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, which is, it's entertaining. If you like James Bond, then great. I think you'll like it, alright. There's nothing really new. I did write in my little review there, what else can you do with James Bond? There is kind of a tried and trusted formula, and it must be hard, I think, for a writer to come up with something that's just a bit different. And this isn't a lot different from other James Bond stories.
You always get the feel like any kind of James Bond media, when they try something different, it kind of gets criticised, and you're like, as well. So fair enough. Cool, I'd like to read that. That's quite interesting. I've never thought of James Bond.
No, I got it from the local library.
Oh, so good. There you go.
That's where to get it.
I like your new rating system. I like that.
I'm going to rate books, and I will honestly say if it's 1 out of 10 or something. I'll honestly say it, because I do that with beer as well. I just tell you I don't like it. I would never drink that again. James Bond stuff, it's easy going. It's middle of the road stuff. pick it up. You'll be entertained, but it's, it's a short read.
Yeah,
Take it back to the library. I probably wouldn't go and buy a James Bond story. Totally. But I would certainly get it from the library, or if I probably found it in a charity shop, I'd probably buy it. For a few
totally.
quid.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to do a review?
Yeah. I read a lot of Marvel, particularly Avengers. Actually, I had to stop and think about this. This is issue 28, which means I've been reading Avenger comics for just under 2.5 years, like non-stop. The Avengers series, I quite like this because it's kind of a reflection of James Bond almost. They try and keep up with they don't keep up with what's going on in the movies. So like obviously it's its own canon and it's its own story, but they still kind of keep an idea of. I think you can tell whoever's writing the comics is keeping an eye on what's going on in the films and throws them back. So I don't know if it's this one or issue 27, but it is this one. So there's a bit where this is set in a galaxy that's not ours, where the whole galaxy is a prison, and there's a planetary. It's defined as a planetary defense. What do they call it? They call it a planetary defense
mechanism. Starbrand.
There you go. You found it for us. It's technically a guy, and the Starbrand. For those that follow Avengers, or for those not, they did a series a couple of years ago called Avengers 1 million BC is what it was called, and it was like it was Odin and the first Phoenix Force and the first Black Panther. A caveman had been enveloped by the spirit of vengeance that takes on Ghost Riders, and he rode a mammoth, but it was essentially just an excuse to put a prehistoric Avengers team together, and it was really successful. The Starbrand is the Avengers 1 million BC's kind of Hulk figure, so he does look like, in a lot of the stuff you see, he does look like a big red fiery kind of Hulk figure. So he's emerged for whatever reason. They've not got there yet in the series, but he's emerged in the middle of this space prison and is causing holy hell. So the prison guards have, as a last ditch effort, have made a distress call to somebody to come and help, and the Avengers are the ones that picked it up.
I see.
Something's gone wrong though, again, that you don't see, and the Avengers have been dispersed across this galaxy and are dealing with their different battles, including Thor, which is the reason I liked this and the reason I picked it up. Thor has been taken over by a symbiotic alien virus called the Brood, which is changing him, and he's losing as time's going on, he's losing his sanity, and there's quite creepy, there's some really creepy and quite unnerving imagery where Captain America's just trying to keep him sane by letting him hold on to the hammer, and he's saying and he's saying things like Thor still worthy, Thor, but you can see that the way his the way, if you read a lot of Avengers comics, you'll notice Thor's language is really grandiose, and they even write his spoken word and a different font than everyone else, because he's mighty and he's supposed to be a god figure amongst the group, and it's always been quite a quirky little trait within the comic. But you can see that this grandiose language is the font is starting to waver a wee bit because he's losing it. But spoilers for those that haven't seen Endgame. As he starts to lose control, he goes for Captain America, punches his shield away, and the only thing that Captain America's got to hand is Mjolnir. Is that the name of how you say it? And as he's holding it, he's like he's saying to himself, "Think worthy thoughts, baseball, apple pie, punching Nazis," because he knows that if he's not able to lift the hammer, he's not going to be able to defend himself against this evil Thor monster. And I'm not going to show you, that's kind of what happened. But it was pretty cool. Just a really cool series, and also they brought Black Widow onto the Avengers team. She's not been seen in Avengers comics for over 2 years, but they brought her back in, obviously, I think as a response to the fact that she's going to have her own movie out this year.
Well,
but they bring her back as this character called the War Widow, which is really, really smart imagery. It's Natasha Romanoff in War Machine armor, personalized War Machine armor.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the cliffhanger for issue 29. Just really cool. I like when they take the Avengers and put them somewhere totally weird and have to make them deal with some really I need to go back and check, but also the event. I think the Marvel comic universe has been kind of restructured and rejigged, and so a lot of I know DC did it quite famously with the New 52. DC do it every 4 or 5 years. They seem to rewrite and decide that, you know, the Batman Year One that you read 20 years ago is actually just the old Batman Year One, and they reboot all the franchises every couple of years.
Kill off characters and bring them back again and all that kind of stuff.
There's no memory of the fact that they were killed off and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the fact they did it, you were talking about Black Widow there, and she was killed off not so long ago. And then she was brought back in a Hawkeye stroke Winter Soldier team up.
Oh, cool.
So, which was actually, I think it was a charity shop, because I wouldn't normally buy it.
I think you gave me that. I just haven't read it. You gave me that to read.
Alright, I wondered where that had gone. So it's quite a good one. And
I've not read it yet.
Black Widow's back in that, and it explains how she is back from the dead.
So she's dead.
And there seems to be a little slight nod to that comic in the movie, from what I've seen in the trailer of the new Black Widow movie.
We should have talked about earlier.
Meet her sister in the movie, and the Russian Captain America,
Red Guardian.
So there's a wee bit of a mention or a nod to that.
Have you seen the Red? You've seen the Red Guardian in the trailer? Who's playing him?
Yeah.
We talked about
David
that later
Harbour,
on.
yeah.
I love David Harbour. I'm late to the David Harbour fan club, but I do love him.
Yeah. Have you seen his Hellboy?
I haven't.
Right. Okay.
Oh, is that who?
That's who's Hellboy in the last movie?
Is that right? Is in Topper from? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. Why didn't I know that? I'm annoyed that I don't know that, because we actually talked about Hellboy.
I haven't watched it all. I started watching it.
Well, we talked about it because obviously it wasn't very well received, and it kind of ruined Neil Marshall's career a wee bit. But that's perfect casting now that I only watched Stranger Things last summer.
I thought he was okay, but the rest of the movie kind of let it down, sadly.
I only saw Stranger Things last summer on your recommendation. You were just saying you have to watch it. It's excellent.
Oh, God, yeah.
So I'm like, I'm all about David Harbour now. Obviously not that all of it. That was cool. Just read Avengers. Marvel's quite a complicated, it's really convoluted, and they're constantly trying to sell you other stuff even within there. Yeah. So like,
there are lots of crossover stuff.
Lots of crossovers,
different story arcs.
And then like which
is what annoys me, to be honest.
It is quite annoying, and they'll introduce a new concept, particularly in the crossovers. They'll introduce concepts that require you to go off and buy 3 or 4 potential series. When I watched that, when I read the War of the Realms event last year, and I actually took a note of all the series that I would like to continue to read, and actually decided not to get in any of them because it was getting really, really silly. There was like genuinely 3 new X-Men titles coming out, 2 Venom titles, and it was all spinning out of this one event. I was like, I don't know how Marvel fans do it, unless like you got, like I said, Marvel Unlimited, is that what it's called? The comic streaming service that they do. I don't understand you can do it. But if I were to rate that, I would say it's part of a series. That's a good 6 or 7 out of 10. I think it's ongoing. You know, you take it for what it is, because it's part 28 of a ongoing title series. So, So what is your second comic?
Well, keeping with the spy theme, I've gone for one of the Kingsman books, which is Red Diamond. So the original Secret Service Kingsman stories were written by Mark Miller. So the original one and its sequel, but now he's handed over writing for this one to Rob Williams, and Simon Fraser's on the artwork here. So a different team, and I think this is kind of going to be this is kind of a theme now with Mark Miller's work. He's handed over Hit Girl to a bunch of different artists and writers recently doing different arts.
The Hit Girl World Tour, isn't it?
Yeah. That's my phone ringing. I'm just going to ignore it because it'll be my mother-in-law probably. Right, so keeping with this Kingsman thing, this sort of spy theme with James Bond and Kingsman. So obviously this plays James Bond for laughs a bit more. Yeah, if you've seen any of the movies or read any of the previous books, it's James Bond for laughs. Yeah. Right, so this lad from poorer part of London, scheming London, Eggsy, becomes a part of this secret service organisation called Kingsman. In the comic books, it's because his
father,
dad, is one, and he was a great agent for them and stuff. But it's different in the movies. So what happens in Red Diamond? What's the storyline there? Well, it starts off with a rather amusing side story in which Eggsy has to save Prince Philip from some kidnappers.
Okay.
During the rescue, he ends up insulting Prince Philip. As a punishment for this, he's given some leave, leave of absence from work. So anyway, he ends up, kind of going home back to, he's already bought his mum a nice house and stuff, but she just doesn't fit in the new neighbourhood. So she's moved back to, East End of London in her flat and stuff. And his wee brother, I think it is, he ends up having to look after him. And takes him out for a spin in the car and everything. But the wee lad's not feeling very well, so he's needing to go to the toilet. He's needing to spew, basically. So he ends up taking him to the tailor shop, which is his secret base, to use the toilet there. And while he's there, he discovers that the world is being held to ransom. This computer hacker, whose name I've forgotten. Red Diamond. That's it.
The title of the comic
is holding the world to ransom and is going to hack every computer in the world, shut them down, which will cause chaos. And he actually does. He does just that. Eggsy has to go and find this other computer hacker called Alias, who might be able to, help avert the situation. And while he's trying to get this hacker called Alias, he encounters Red Diamond's henchman, a big bulky guy who constantly quotes films and goes on about movies, which everybody's got a friend like that, haven't they? That talks about movies all the time. And he also encounters a beautiful South African secret agent who is also on the case as well. And there's a bit of rivalry there initially, but then there's a bit of a team up and then a bit of a double cross and everything. So it is a kind of cheekier kind of James Bond kind of story. I think the movies are better than the comic books.
I really enjoyed the first movie up until the last 30 seconds, and then there was quite a crass joke in there that I thought was totally unnecessary. The first film's tremendous. I've not seen the second one, but I know it's kind of middle. It's middle of the ground.
It's probably not as good as the first one. Better special effects, higher budget, obviously, and we'll be looking forward to the prequel.
The prequel
That's coming out. So. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 as well. It's solid kind of story. Fine if you're into that kind of thing. If you're not really into sort of spies and stuff, then give it a miss. It's not as good as the first couple, I think. And now you're kind of expecting things. It's getting a bit like James Bond, and there's a kind of template for writing a.
I'm assuming the henchman being kind of quirky is kind of. Quite funny because obviously, even just in my sort of basic knowledge from the film, it was the fact that she had knives for legs. Yeah,
that's right. The henchman in that one, and then in the second movie, the female villain was quite quirky as well, and had a sort of really quirky base. It was very, kitschy American kind of secret base and things. So I think that's its little hook, and the fact that Eggsy is just a commoner, and not really a Kingsman per se. But anyway, it's a 6 out of 10. If you see it and you can get it cheaply or get it from your library, then it's worth a read. Awesome. So that's that.
Cool. My second comic choice of this week was the first of a series of what's the word I'm looking for? People have been giving us comics to review.
So it tends to be kind of smaller, independent comic book writers, publishers.
I got this from the writer, which is
sending us some digital copies to review. So
it's pretty good.
So what's this you've got?
So this is Omega Comics, Murderers of the World by M.J. Rivas, or Rivas. So this is a series which is written by. Oh, hold on. I'll pause that. Okay, so towards the end of the year, we asked for contributions and what's the word I'm looking for? I've been working today and I can't word anymore.
We asked like independent and small press comics people to if they wanted a review, send us some of their work, and we got quite a few, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I think 6 or 7, but a couple more I think today actually.
So this is our first review of that set, isn't it?
And we're just I'm working my way through them and just kind of writing notes and having a wee thought. But one that struck me from the offset was by M.J. Rivas, who's an independent comic writer and artist who works for Omega Comics, or he is Omega Comics. He has a series called Murderers of the World, which is one of his. He sent me quite a lot of his work, and he's got 2 or 3 series on the go. But Murderers of the World it's quite it just had quite a cool concept that I got right behind.
Yeah.
In that it's set in the future. There's 2 opposing forces in the United. It's not the United States anymore. It's been divided into 2 opposing factions. A group called the People's Democratic Territory, which are a revolutionary and free. It's described as revolutionary and free. Sounds like just like a kind of progressive, rebellious corner of this divide, and they're at war with the new Destiny Republic, which is kind of imagery heavy, like reckon as sort of an authoritarian fascist. Well, these are kind of the words I get up. A lot of their imagery kind of focuses around almost kind of religious imagery as well, like yellow straight lines that are kind of reminiscent of crosses and things like that. But yeah, so they're kind of at war with each other, and the.
But you were explaining that's kind of just the backdrop
that's
to the story, because it's not really the story about that.
Yeah, so the story focuses on the people within this structure, particularly the character of his Rex King, who's the CEO, which I thought was quite interesting as well. I really liked what I liked about this comic was the concept, and I quite liked that the CEO of the new Destiny Republic is a CEO, and he's not like the
president or something like that. Yeah.
Your telly's
How did
playing
my
cards.
TV just go on by itself? You know what? It's because my wife can't use the fire stick thing properly.
It was just I just wanted to kind of talk just a bit about it. It's you should check it out, and we'll actually have a competition towards the end of this review where you can maybe get an opportunity to try and grab a free copy of this. But it was just really high concept. So the story focuses on quite a number of different people. Obviously, you've got Rex King, who's as a CEO of this new Destiny authoritarian government. I thought it was quite cool that was a really interesting creative choice where you instead of being like a dictator or like the president or supreme leader or all these kind of names that you could use for somebody at the top of like an authoritarian pyramid, they've gone with CEO, which is obviously a business term, chief executive officer. I thought it was really good. And then there's a group called the I don't remember what they're called because he mentions it. They're there's a guerrilla group on the I want to say the goody side, the sort of the free and revolutionary side. Who they have a force of kind of secret warriors that are trying to defend this new revolutionary state from the encroachment of the authoritarian one. One of the main characters of this group is a former enforcer, kind of soldier from the authoritarian group. So he's kind of a turncoat, and he's a defender there. He spent time as they're called the Guerrilla Warriors. I apologise, Guardians Green and Sandos. So they're these Guerrilla Warriors are guardians of this progressive state, and they one of them is he was a former kind of police officer within the the authoritarian group, and there's a serial killer emerged, and he recognises that it's possibly somebody that he had to deal with in the past.
Right, so there's like a pattern between these murders.
And he's recognised that, and he's looked at it and thought, he's recognised the pattern, and it's the one case that he didn't solve. So obviously that's become intriguing for him. It's just I really want to. What I love about this series and what I've been really loving about it is the fact that it reminded me of why I love like independent comics, and I'm always kind of taken back to, we went to an open evening with Alison Sampson, who is an artist for Hit Girl, and towards the end of her presentation, Albie, who's the guy that owns the comic book shop that we frequent, the little shop of heroes, he made it quite clear that comic book shops in general stock a very small percentage of the possible options he has for stocking comics on the shelf. You know, like he's a very small one. There's so many titles coming out, and what gets lost in that is the independent kind of scene. I think it's one of the things why I like about going to comic conventions, because you can go down like Creator Alley or whatever, and you can meet the people. You can actually, as well as meeting kind of high profile comic book and media guests, you can meet a guy who has written, drawn, and storyboarded, and he's behind the whole creation, and it's just his baby. And I've done that more and more in the last couple of years, and I love it. This was something that I possibly would have picked up at one of these conventions, just because of its concept. I really like it. The imagery is quite cool. We were for the purposes of reviews, bits of the art, not so much the art style. I really like I don't know if you'll see that. He uses black and white with kind of key strokes of colour through it, which I think is a really inspired choice. I really like the symbol of the new Destiny Republics is all kind of gold crosses, with a blue eye in the middle, and I quite like that because that blue eye becomes a recurring theme. Most of the characters from the new from that Republic all have blue eyes, and there's obviously connotations or historical connotations behind that I thought was quite impressive. And they're in this group they're predominantly white characters as well. So there's obviously there's an aesthetic choice there. I thought the colour scheme was quite cool and quite inspired. The art style, I know, so it's Revis that draws as well as writes here, and I think the story is great. And at times, if I'm honest, the art possibly doesn't back that up. But you know, it's good art. It's passable. It's he scaled up. He scales really well. It's just obviously when we read so much stuff, we're used to art. You know, James Bond and Marvel and stuff. So
high budget stuff.
High budget.
We're used to reading high budget stuff. So your expectations are going to be lower with an independent comic. And as an independent comic artist, I know that myself.
Of course you do.
I can't match up with the.
But then, if you're prepared to look past, I suppose it's like any form of media that's got a high budget versus low budget.
Yeah.
You know, some of the best films and some of my favourite films have got budgets that I probably could have funded out of my own pocket.
Yeah. I've seen some. I've been watching some odd films on Netflix recently. You know, ones that aren't advertised. You kind of have to hunt for them.
Yeah.
A couple of kind of wartime stories I've seen recently. The 12th Man, I think, which is a Norwegian movie, and I also watched another one called something like Into the White. His biggest budget was probably getting Rupert Grint to be in it, but it's basically 5 guys, stuck in a cabin in the Norwegian wilderness. In the snow, and very low budget, but really gripping stories.
Absolutely, and I think you need to. I think I agree with that. I think that's something that needs to be considered within independent comics. You talked about it as well, and I thought it's quite interesting that of all the comics, the 4 comics we've reviewed this episode, this has got a micro budget in comparison to James Bond, Kingsman, and Avengers. I think it's got the most interesting story of the 4. It's got a lot of creative freedom in there, and and again, sort of the same as sort of small budget independent cinema and television. The ambition, it completely outshines the and you have to look. It's a wee bit harder, and you have to look for that. But there's just throughout this comic, there's just so many lovely creative touches that I really enjoyed. But yeah, I wouldn't have picked this off the shelf if it was sat in the shelf between like Captain America and James Bond. You would maybe struggle to pick up. But
that's the beauty of it. You know, it's somebody's vision. They can do what they like,
Absolutely.
tell the story they want, the way they want to. There's no committee.
Yeah.
You know, there's no
there's not
huge canon that you've got to go back.
That's what I was going to say. You have to establish by the.
You don't have to be held back by that.
Unless there's like a huge creative decision, which you usually hear about because it becomes a pop culture thing. By the end of a huge world destroying arc in Avengers, you're still going to finish the series with your core group and a safe Earth, because they have to establish those things at the start and end of every arc. Whereas in independent stuff you can go in there. So yeah, I was well done, Mr. Revis. And if this is what's to be expected by sort of independent comic submissions, where I think 2020 is going to be quite fantastic. I will make sure in the show notes on Facebook and all that sort of stuff, we have a link to Omega Comics. We talked just before we went online. MG Revis has been really. I spoke to him this morning, and he's been really kind and offered us and allowed us to offer one copy of Murderers of the World as a prize for something.
Okay, good.
So we need to decide what that is, and then
so we're going to do a quiz question. Right? Okay, I've got a question.
You got a question.
I've got a question.
We're going to put it here because you then have to find it, and then.
Okay, so you're going to have to go and make sure you've read or listened to our reviews. And the question is, and we'd like you to go to our Facebook page and personal message us,
that's a good shout.
so that you don't just post it publicly, because then everybody will just copy your answer. So go and message us on our Facebook page the answer to this question. So the question is, in James Bond Hammerhead, what's the name of the villain?
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. This is good, yeah. Right. I didn't even know that. I was like, I'm going to have to listen to one podcast again. So stay tuned if you want to keep listening, because we've got I recorded quite a long conversation with our new contributor James, where we kind of looked at some of the interesting stuff about 2020 that's coming up, and a wee bit of a retrospective on some of it, just because we were drinking, and that's what happened. So it came into a retrospective of 2019, where we talked about Hellboy without mentioning David Harbour, despite having a conversation about David Harbour in the same podcast. Also, we talked about like all the upcoming comics and Marvel stuff, and some of the Image have got some really interesting comic arcs coming out this year, which is quite interesting, including one that I think you'll need to listen, because I think you'll really enjoy it. So there's a really interesting Image event coming out in March that I think everyone should check out. Also, I don't know, we're playing around with the format a wee bit, but there was a couple of shout-outs that we talked about before we recorded that we wanted to make. Our good friend Barry Lumsden has got, help me with it, so we're fans of the Iron Wolf series. He's kind of got a collected
edition of his Iron Wolf series on Kickstarter. It just came on Kickstarter today, so this is Friday the
16th.
Is it 16th? Yeah, no,
17th. You know what's wrong there.
Friday 17th. It came out on Kickstarter today, so that's collecting editions 1 to 4 of his Iron Wolf story. So that's a. We did review. I think issue
Iron Wolf 1 in our very first episode. Yeah.
Very briefly, it's a fantasy series. It's there's a whole bunch of different factions, sort of tribes in this fantasy land. And they have this council, and they get together, kind of they live in peace mostly, but they decide that they want to make contact with this tribe, the Neanderthal tribe, and kind of bring them into this committee, community. As well. So there's an adventure there as they go to make contact with this tribe, but there are certain other tribes that are less keen on this happening, and there's some kind of stuff happening in the background, politics and conspiracy stuff.
Check it out. It's a really cool series, and
So,
it's a good way to get it all. The front, the cover, he's got who's he got doing the cover?
Oh, Gary Erskine's
So
doing
Gary
the cover.
Erskine's
He's
doing the cover.
done the cover for the collected edition.
Yeah, which
if
is
you're
amazing.
looking for it on Kickstarter, I think it's under the name Iron Dynasties rather than
Yeah,
Iron
that's the
Wolf.
name. That's the
So
name.
it's
of
Iron
it.
Dynasties is the collected edition.
I think Iron Dynasty is also the name
Yeah.
of Barry's comic.
Yes, he's
his
kind of
comic
publishing
company, his publishing company.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, check that out, and if
So,
you've got anything else you want us to shout out, that sounds like fine. So yeah,
Yeah, we'll certainly be looking at more Kickstarters and things.
Mhm.
I do back quite a lot of Kickstarters, and I'd like to do more reviews of those things, or maybe even previews. Talk about things that are coming
Yeah,
out, or
absolutely.
just appear on Kickstarter, and I could perhaps I'll try and get some preview editions and things for reviews.
and let us know if there's anything that you're aware of as well, because
Yeah, Absolutely.
there's loads
We'll
out there. Eh?
Tell us what you would like to review.
Mm.
We're also thinking about that from time to time. If we've been reading a whole bunch of books, we'll just fire up pictures of all the books on our
Yeah.
social media, and then you have a look at them and tell us which ones you would like us to review.
Absolutely, that sounds really good, because we do read a lot, and we pick what we want to review rather than actually let's maybe change it up a bit, and change is good. See what happens.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Okay. See you next time.
There you go. See you later.